Dark Shadows, number 40, VTR 21767, Air 22467, take one.
My name is Victoria Winters. Collinwood grows more and more tangled in a web of mysteries, and woven into the web are not only confusion and doubt, but terror and fear. And the struggle to understand seems only to make the web more tangled, the confusion greater, the fear more terrifying, and the mystery deeper. But how can that be possible?
Well, that's what Frank wants to know.
Well, what exactly did Lieutenant Riley say to him?
Only what I told you.
There has to be a mistake.
No, not according to Riley. They checked over and over again.
But things like that just don't happen.
It did.
But there has to be an explanation.
Oh, yes, there may be some explanations, but like so many other explanations, we may never know about it.
Do you mean to say that the body was put there in the morgue after the fire in Mrs. Collins' apartment?
And Lieutenant Riley went with the Phoenix authorities to get the body for burial.
And it was gone.
That's right. They went into the vault where the body was supposed to have been put, and it was empty. Absolutely empty.
I don't understand.
Neither does Frank, neither does Lieutenant Riley, and neither do I.
No, I mean, well, of course I don't understand how that body could be missing. But also, I don't understand why it makes me so frightened.
Well, I think that's because something very way out of the ordinary must have happened.
But what does it have to do with us? As a matter of fact, what does it have to do with us that an unidentified woman died in that fire?
A fire in Mrs. Collins' apartment, may I remind you. No, I have no doubt that there's a connection between what's been happening here at Collingwood and what happened in that apartment in Phoenix and what happened to the body in the morgue.
Well, there is one thing that does seem to connect everything.
What's that?
Fire. A fire in the apartment. Fire in David's dreams. Fire in Sam Evans' paintings. And also the fact that Mrs. Collins' ancestors died by fire.
I know. But fire doesn't explain that body vanishing.
Well, I suppose not, but still there has to be some kind of a connection.
And I still think there's only one way to find out.
You mean another seance?
That's right.
Well, it's a very frightening prospect.
Well, you have my promise that we'll try everything and anything else before we hold another seance.
Thank you. Tell me, did Frank say that all this about the body was to be kept a secret?
No, he didn't say anything one way or the other. Thank heaven.
Why do you say that?
Because there's one person that I'm very eager to tell.
Mrs. Collins?
Mrs. Collins.
Burke, please, I don't have an explanation.
You must have.
Why?
This Dr. Guthrie is no ordinary doctor. He's a parapsychologist.
I know that.
Then why can't you explain what he's doing here?
Because it doesn't make any sense.
But a parapsychologist, that means he deals with spiritual things, the occult.
I'm sorry, Burke. I just can't seriously discuss this subject.
Why?
Because I can't take him seriously. And you can't either. You know you can't.
Why would they bring in a man like that? And why is he so particularly interested in you?
How should I know?
Laura, I know exactly what's been going on around here. And his interest in you seems an awful lot like suspicion.
Well, it's completely unfounded. And I'm sick and tired of it. You should know what it's like to have everyone against you. When you know yourself you've done absolutely nothing wrong. Oh, I don't care about those people up there in that house, but you? When the suspicion comes from you, I don't know what to think. What does it mean? You don't love me? You don't trust me?
Maybe.
But you've got to trust me. I need you.
Yes, I need you.
We've got to trust each other.
I know.
And we do. Don't we?
I know it's only a hunch, but when have we had much more to go on?
But do you really think that Mrs. Collins would explain?
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm anxious to see her reaction.
Well, her reaction has always been one of annoyance and indifference whenever the fire or the woman was mentioned.
Yes, it may be that again, but it may not.
But what difference would it make, one way or the other?
Well, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that it's another piece of this puzzle, and I want to make sure that I have it.
Excuse me, Mrs. Johnson's left her keys.
Oh, Vicky, one moment.
What is it?
Well, if that should be Mrs. Collins, would you mind not mentioning the body?
Of course.
Well, I think I'll go for a walk. I'll be back very soon.
Well,
Vicky, I've got to see you.
well, you shouldn't be here.
Why? Liz isn't here. You know, Roger doesn't inspire much fear and trembling in me.
I can't let you in.
You've got to.
Look, Burke, I'll come and see you in town whenever you want me to.
Vicky, I've got to see you here and now.
Oh, hello, Devlin. How are you?
Doctor?
I'm glad to see you finally recognize the truth about my identity. I understand that you thought for a while that I was a policeman.
My apologies.
Accepted. Vicky, I'll just be a few minutes.
All right.
Before you tell me to leave again, answer one question.
All right, Burke, what is it?
Exactly who is that guy?
Why are you so concerned?
Because he has a special interest in Laura.
I don't know what you mean.
Vicky. Now, Vicky, you know you don't lie to me.
Look, I have already told you that Dr. Guthrie is doing everything he can to find out what happened to Mrs. Stoddard.
And he suspects Laura, doesn't he?
What makes you think that?
Because he's so interested in her. Now, Vicky, if you know anything, you must tell me.
Why?
I've got to know if I can trust her.
Burke, that is for you to decide.
Well, let me put it this way. Do you trust her? I know you suspect she had something to do with what happened to Liz. Now tell me why.
I can't.
Look, Vicky, out of your friendship for me, you've got to tell me. Why? Why do you suspect her of hurting Liz? Please, Vicky. Please tell me.
All right. But there's so much to explain. Anyway, you probably won't believe me.
If you tell me, I'll believe it.
Well, the spirit of Josette Collins has been trying to tell me something. Twice now she's led me to a cemetery and a crypt where two of Mrs. Collins' ancestors are buried, and...
Yes, go on.
well, they both have the same name as her. Laura Murdoch. And then a last name. And they both died the same way that that woman in Phoenix died, in fire.
And what does that mean?
Well, I'm not sure. But it must mean something, or Josette wouldn't have made me discover it.
Well, what does all this have to do with Laura hurting Liz?
I wish I knew. But don't forget that she lied about being the last person to see Mrs. Stoddard before she got sick.
Well, what does that prove?
Burke, you asked me whether or not I trusted Mrs. Collins. Well, I don't. I don't at all, and I'm afraid of her.
Afraid?
Yes, afraid. There was that fire in David's dreams, and the same thing in Sam Evans' paintings. And then there was the fact that those ancestors of hers died in the fire. Well, it all means something.
But what?
Well, if I knew, I might not be afraid of her, but I don't know. And then just a little while ago,
What?
we got a call from Phoenix about the body that was burned in the fire in her apartment.
What about it?
Well, it's gone. Disappeared. Nobody can explain anything about it. Nobody knows anything at all. But it has something to do with Mrs. Collins. Now, do you understand why I don't trust her? Is it so wrong that I'm afraid of her? Well, tell me, am I so wrong? Am I?
Please go away.
I hope I'm not disturbing you, Mrs. Collins.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was resting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wondered if I could speak to you for just a moment.
I'm awfully tired.
It's rather important.
I doubt that. If you'll excuse
We
me.
had some news a little while ago from Phoenix.
Oh? Well, in that case, I'm sure it's not important. You should know by now that anything that happens in Phoenix has nothing to do with me.
Well, I didn't mean that it had anything to do with you specifically.
Which means it could not possibly interest me. So if you don't mind. Excuse me.
I can't blame you. We've been under quite a strain, all of us.
A strain which I might add you have done nothing to alleviate.
And you, I suppose, have done nothing to increase?
Dr. Guthrie, I am becoming accustomed to your accusations and insinuations, but I am becoming no less annoyed by them. So if you don't mind.
They decided to bury that woman who died in the fire.
Something they should have done long ago.
I'm sure they'd agree with you. You see, when they went to the vault to find the body, it was gone.
Gone. No. That's terrible. Of course, it's a mistake. And not their first, I might add.
They were completely mystified.
Their usual disguise for stupidity.
You seem rather upset by it.
By what? The stupidity of their incompetence?
Well, no. By the fact that the body was gone.
Well, of course, it is a little shocking at first until one realizes they've just made another of their mistakes.
Isn't it strange?
No. No, it's not strange or unusual.
No, I don't mean about the mistake. If it was a mistake,
But what do you mean, then?
that it should mean so much to you.
It means nothing to me.
Are you sure?
No more than the initial fact that someone that I don't know and don't care about died in my apartment.
Well, that's not the impression I had a minute ago.
Well, I think it's time we admitted, Doctor, that you are a very impressionable man.
Oh, yes, I admit that. But I also admit the validity of my impressions.
An admission that I hardly could agree with. Well, if you'll excuse me...
What does it mean?
What?
The fact that the body is gone.
I told
It
you.
means something very special, doesn't it?
It means simply...
No, it doesn't mean another mistake. It means something very different.
Well, I'm not interested.
I think you're very interested. And I think you know why. And I would like you to tell me what it is.
Dr. Guthrie, I have been as polite as I intend to be.
All right, forget being polite. I'm not particularly polite either. But you know something that you're not telling me.
All right? I'll tell you. Go away and leave me alone.
What do you know about that body being gone?
I'm warning you. I want to be left alone. I'm tired of your questions and your accusations.
I haven't accused you of anything.
And I'm not going to warn you anymore.
Warn me? About what?
Nothing.
You sound as though you're threatening me. Exactly what are you threatening to do?
Are you going to leave me alone?
No, I don't think I am. Now what do you do?
Don't say I didn't warn you.
I won't. Now what, Mrs. Collins? Waiting, Mrs. Collins. You warned me of something. What is it?
I suggest you go back to the house.
Oh? Then?
Just go back to the house.
And if I don't go?
Laura, open the door.
Aren't you going to answer my question?
Laura, why don't you open the... What's he doing here?
As a matter of fact, he's annoying me.
Just a few routine questions for which I can't seem to get an answer.
Burke, would you please ask him to leave?
Well, I guess we can continue another time.
And tell him to stay away from me.
Oh, don't bother, Devlin. I couldn't oblige.
I don't know what I'm going to do. When are people going to leave me alone?
Maybe when you do start giving a few simple, straight answers.
Why you came back? To upset me more?
Why does it upset you to explain a few simple facts?
Burke, I can't talk about it now.
I understand you lied about having seen Liz before she got sick.
I just can't stand any more of this.
Why did you lie?
I haven't done anything to anyone. It wasn't important. It wasn't important at the time. Please leave me alone.
Aren't you even going to try to explain?
I can't. I can't explain something that no one can. You can ask me all the questions you want to, but I can't give you a better answer than that.
I want to believe you, Laura.
Please, Burke, I beg of you. I just can't talk about it now. Please leave. Come back later.
You can tell me. Did you do anything to Liz?
Burke, you've just got to leave me alone.
Okay. But in the meantime, why don't you try to think of some straight, simple answers?
I will. I promise you. You know I'll do anything you want. Just please leave me alone now.
All right.
Vicky. Vicky!
Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.